So people are destroying the new government AI cameras that are popping up everywhere and violating people's privacy.
Of the year because thousands of people on TikTok and Instagram have now become obsessed with taking down AI-powered police cameras. Some are climbing ladders, others are throwing cheese on solar panels, and you have entire accounts just dedicated to tracking where these cameras are currently located. So now you have a whole trend where people are documenting these cameras, mocking them, and celebrating every time one stopped working. So what exactly is Flock Safety, and why has a surveillance company become the internet's newest villain?
Flock identifies itself as a public safety technology company that uses connected cameras to help communities across the country respond to and investigate safety incidents. Critics argue the company is a massive surveillance operation and worry personal data is at risk.
Yeah, so unless you're really into like local government meetings or police technology, there's a good chance you've never heard of Flock Safety until all these videos started popping up recently.
People usually criticize China for being such a surveillance state, like they monitor everything that their citizens do. Now it seems like the United States is taking a page out of that book by introducing these cameras.
Flock Safety, in short, is a Georgia-based company that builds automated license plate reader systems used by thousands of law enforcement agencies across the United States currently. They'll probably expand though. But according to the company, its technology is used by more than 5,000 agencies across more than 6,000 communities, helping investigators with over 1 million investigations in 2025 alone. So I guess the idea here is instead of waiting for an officer to spot a suspicious vehicle, you place cameras around the city that quietly watch traffic 24 hours a day. So every time the vehicle passes one, the system captions a still image and records things like the license and model, the color, the body style, the date, the time, and the direction the vehicle is traveling. That's currently though, but it also seems like they're also adding features to detect devices that are in the vehicle as well, like phones or Bluetooth devices. That could, for example, give them the ability to not only track who owns the vehicle and where the vehicle is going, but who's currently sitting inside the vehicle. You know, because each phone has its own ID, so in theory, you could then track a whole lot more people, including people on the bus or people who are passengers in certain vehicles. Regardless, this is essentially automated eyes sitting on poles, constantly logging what passes in front of them. And that said, these things are also fairly advanced technology-wise because many models actually use infrared illumination, so they can capture clear images day and night. And in many cases, they can actually see through people's masks. So that's one reason they're so effective, and also one reason why people who are currently wearing masks to destroy these need to be a little careful.
And this is kind of scary because this is monitoring every device that goes by. It can see through masks. It has infrared, so it can see at nighttime, daytime. Like, this can turn into a really, really big thing. And I'm not surprised this is happening with the cost of cameras and solar panels, and all technology is dropping.
Because it can still detect the shape of your face. And it's safe to say police departments absolutely love them. The Abilene Police Department in Texas says Flock cameras have helped investigate homicides, recover stolen vehicles, solve hit-and-run cases, and even track homicide suspects across multiple cities.
Police department has confirmed it is using 13 Flock camera license plate readers to fight crime around the Keys City. APD did not disclose to KRBC the location of these cameras, but did say all 13 are located along major roads.
So I guess if bank robbery suspects drive through town, investigators can actually see where the vehicle entered, where it exited, and potentially where it went next. So I guess instead of relying entirely on eyewitnesses, they suddenly have a digital breadcrumb trail. But really, this is only the tip of the iceberg because these cameras aren't just taking pictures. See, every time your car passes one, information gets added to a searchable database. Not just your license plate, but your vehicle make, model, color, body style, and so on and so on and so on. So Flock is very clear about a few things. The company says the data belongs to the agency that collected it. Searches are, I guess, logged and audible, and by default, the information is automatically deleted after 30 days. And the company also repeatedly says that it does not use facial recognition technology. But critics argue that you don't really need facial recognition to build a surprisingly detailed picture on someone's life. Think about it. If a camera sees the same car outside of the same house every night, then outside of the same school or outside of the same church regularly, they can build kind of like a very good map of where this person goes and exists and what kind of life they live. And I don't know about you, but I feel like most people believe that this is the kind of data we should consent to. And it seems like most people agree with that. So you have groups like the ACLU and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They've argued that that's where the real privacy concern actually starts. Not because the cameras identify faces, but because they can document movement patterns over time. And that debate has only gotten louder and louder as Flock's network has grown. So you have thousands of agencies now using these systems across thousands of communities. And some departments also participate in something called a national lookup, allowing agencies to search data collected by other departments. And again, police obviously see value in that. If someone steals a car in one state and drives hundreds of miles away, investigators don't have to hope, like, I don't know, another officer spots it. Cameras along the route may have already documented where it traveled. But if all these cameras are quietly collecting information every day, how much tracking is too much tracking? Because there's a lot of stories popping up now that are becoming a real issue.
Yeah, this is definitely something that you will want to consent to or have a say to it. But even if you had a way to consent to it, they're always going to be collecting the data. And one story I've heard about these Flock cameras is they're easily hackable. Like, some people were able to hack these cameras, and they did displays of showing cameras that were close by, like playgrounds and stuff like this. So even if they found some way for you to consent to it or not consent to it, how are they going to stop the camera from recording your information? If you walk past one of them or you drive past one on the highway every day on your way to work, or when you're going grocery shopping, you're going to have to try to consent to the information. And if you consent, it has to monitor your information to not record your information and then delete it. So it kind of creates this weird catch-22 where even if they have the option to consent, you would have to collect your data so they know who you were, so they won't collect your data.
I'm going to get into a few of those later on in this video, but one of the stranger stories making the rounds involve a man who reportedly filed a public records request for Flock data tied to his own license plate, only to have the request denied over privacy concerns. Excuse me, what? He's trying to get his own information, but he's being blocked due to privacy concerns? So the government can collect data on your movements, but when you ask to see information about your own vehicle, you're told releasing it would violate privacy. What?
Like, somebody wants to look up their information, but then they're saying they're not going to give you information so you can see what information they collected on you. And also, you got to think about this. Everybody's not a good participant. You have people who use social engineering to probably get somebody information, or you have a crazy stalker that knows about these cameras, and say they give you an option to consent or look up your information, and somebody's acting like a person to gather your information to figure out what they want to do with that. Like, say they're monitoring somebody or they're stalking somebody. Like, this can be really, really bad. It can go many ways.
As they're changing laws. So Washington State passed legislation restricting where automatic license plate reader cameras can operate, limiting collection near places like schools, places of worship, healthcare facilities, food banks, and immigration-related sites. Other cities have reconsidered or ended their contracts with Flock after concerns over safety. So for one group of people, I guess, these cameras represent safer communities. But for the overwhelming majority, they represent one of the largest surveillance networks most people never realized already existed. And then, I guess you have the internet.
Yo, chat, 5K likes, I'm gonna start taking Flock cameras down. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't restrain myself. I low-key just gorilla shook this motherfucker and it broke. You Peter Thiel. You.
And instead of, I guess, writing angry opinion pieces, people started posting TikToks. And not before long, Flock cameras weren't just controversial, they became content.
Hey, Peter, we're coming for you. We, the people of the United States of America, are not going to stand for that police state. The good news is we can do something about it.
If you scroll through TikTok or Instagram Reels or Twitter, it won't take you too long before you find videos of people celebrating another Flock camera going offline. Some people cheer because, you know, they drove past an empty pole, and others post maps showing where all the cameras are located. And then, of course, one of the stranger trends I've seen come out of this is people throwing slices of cheese onto the camera's solar panels, which I guess temporarily blocks them from charging. And obviously, not everyone online is just joking. I do want to say that a lot of people protesting Flock cameras aren't doing it for the trend online either, but they're literally just trying to get this kind of surveillance removed.
People are just now learning about this. Like, I heard about this a couple of months ago, but I heard about it in passing. But now I'm hearing a lot more people talk about this. Like, even people that are close to me are coming to me like, have you heard about these flock cameras that are monitoring people? And one of my family members actually received a ticket from this.
Craziest overreaches we've seen in a while.
Historically, I stay out of the city and the city stays out of my business. It was a pretty decent arrangement. But then y'all sent me one of these tickets from one of your AI red light cameras you have deemed as necessary infrastructure in your city. The thing about this is I was in Seminole, Alabama at the time I allegedly ran this red light downtown. Because the enforcement action of 316.0083 unduly shifts the burden of proof to the vehicle owner, me, to prove my innocence rather than the state having to prove my guilt. Currently, I'm guilty by default. I've been convicted by a computer program. So not only does this process flow through a private company, our DMV records and personal registration information are accessible by a foreign actor.
But regardless, police around the country are investigating multiple incidents involving damaged or destroyed flock cameras. One recent example came out of Indiana, where a flock camera along Interstate 69 was found lying on the ground, and Indiana State Police confirmed it belongs to the agency and opened an investigation. There was also a dude in Virginia, I think, who got arrested for, let's say, a guy in Virginia arrested. Yeah, it was a dude in Virginia who also destroyed a whole bunch of flock cameras and got arrested. What I guess was kind of amusing about the Indiana one is officials, they couldn't confirm if it just fell or if it was vandalized, but they are currently looking for whoever did it. Essentially, people across the internet are putting out hits on these AI cameras.
Peter Thiel! Peter Thiel! Well. It's a flock camera. Peter Thiel! Peter Thiel!
I see you, Peter Thiel!
We have a message.
And also in North Carolina, damaged flock cameras started a debate over whether the technology's crime-fighting benefits outweighed the privacy concerns. And then there's a bunch of videos that go much further, like posting guides explaining different ways to either take down the flock cameras or disable them or just outright destroy them. Now, to be absolutely clear, this channel does not condone that whatsoever. Doing stuff like this has some serious criminal risk. You don't want to mess up your life because you hate an AI camera, but I don't think too many people have too much sympathy for them. It's kind of like the same thing of hearing about like, oh no, someone destroyed a speed camera. What will I ever do?
As a US citizen, I feel like this is very, very, very evasive, and this is probably unconstitutional because you're basically just giving up all your information. Because there's things like HIPAA, which guards information. You have privacy notices. You have all this.
What I can tell, every time you destroy one, Flock gets paid to replace it. So we are really just kind of stuck in this weird purgatory for something that I don't think anyone voted for. It's just another thing to add to the long list of inshtification that we've experienced over the last few years, because there's no clear win here. Like, either your every movement is tracked and your tax money goes to replace the broken cameras, so your every movement can be still tracked. Fun. But I mean, the amount of hate these things is starting to get is making the criticism harder for the company to ignore. Because some of the biggest controversies weren't about strangers damaging the cameras at all. They were about people who were authorized to use them. Because no matter how secure a system is, it's still operated by human beings. So in Georgia, a police officer by the name of Paige Fort was charged after investigators alleged that she searched Flock's database for personal reasons. So according to Georgia's Bureau of Investigation, she conducted more than 30 unauthorized searches, including searches involving her former boyfriend and people connected with him. Well, that's not good.
Yeah, and just like I brought up earlier, human beings are going to be human, and there's going to be nefarious players out there everywhere. And just like this police officer in Georgia was using this to stalk her ex-boyfriend and seeing his whereabouts and doing all this, imagine if a hacker organization or something gets access to majority of these things and build cases against people and start blackmailing them and wanting to take ransom, like, oh, I know you go to this so-and-so quote unquote adult place, or you do these actions, and I'm pretty sure your wife or your job or whatever doesn't know about this. And if you don't send this amount of money in Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency, we will leak this information.
And she was eventually charged with computer invasion of privacy. And now, that's obviously not Flock deciding to stalk someone's ex. That's an officer allegedly abusing the access that she's been trusted with. But critics argued that's exactly the point. when you build an incredibly powerful database, you also create the possibility that someone with access could misuse this database. And, you know, it's the same concern people have with medical records or any database containing sensitive information. The technology isn't always the problem, the person behind the keyboard might be. And that was definitely not an isolated thing. There are tons of situations like this, and this isn't even only a recent thing, because even years ago, investigative reporting found that officers in multiple states had used automated license plate reader systems to look up people for reasons unrelated to active investigations. I'm pretty sure there was also a case where some cop, I guess, thought a woman was attractive, so he looked her up so he could pull her over. Yeah, that's crazy. Let me fact check myself real quick here because I saw it on a headline. I want to make sure this is real.
I mean, that's actually insane. A cop looking up a woman just because he thought you were attractive and pulled her over. Like, imagine the chaos that can happen if these cameras are put up everywhere and people get access to it. Like, this is just a really silly example, but it just points out how crazy this situation is.
A Florida deputy used an automated license plate readers to track and pull over a woman he met while working a security detail on a TV set. This is real and very recent. This happened this month. I'm recording this on the 29th of July. But I guess that's exactly why departments now require searches to be tied to a case number and maintain audit logs showing who searched what and when. Flock itself says every search is recorded and auditable, making it easier to see when someone is using it for the wrong reasons. But also, I have a feeling that can be bypassed, but what do I know? But I guess that's better than having no oversight. But, you know, as we've seen in plenty of other industries, having rules isn't the same thing as everyone actually following them. Then you have cases where nobody necessarily abuses the system and things still go wrong, like Joel Fetter. Fetter was driving through Colorado when he suddenly found himself pulled over at gunpoint. Police believe the vehicle he was driving had been reported stolen, except it wasn't. According to the reporting on the incident, the problem started when the vehicle was entered into the National Crime Information Center database using only a partial license plate instead of his full license plate number. So Flock's system searched using information that had been given and generated a possible match, and officers acted on that alert. So the result was an innocent man being detained because a chain of human errors snowballed into a terrifying traffic stop. And I don't know if this makes it better or not, but Flock said its system had functioned as configured and apologized for what Fetter experienced. And the company also acknowledged that figuring out the exact matches from partial matches was fair feedback. Feedback? The guy had a firearm pointed at him. What are you talking about? Oh, thank you for the feedback. That could have gone so bad. And essentially the company's response was just like, well, we'll work with this constructive criticism here. Excuse me, what? Also, another issue is that most people don't actually understand how the system works.
Oh, that's really scary. See, like, there's so many incidents where this can go really, really bad. Like, what happens if the police pull firearms on him and he panics or something like that and somebody actually gets unalived? Like,
but then later, police showed that they could generate maps showing where vehicles had traveled based on camera detections. So is this being misleading on purpose? What's going on here? Was it all just like a misunderstanding or different features being discussed? I don't get what's going on. Or I guess did city officials simply not get the full picture before making a decision? But I guess even when the company says it has safeguards, if the public doesn't understand how those rules work or thinks the rules don't make sense, trust really starts disappearing. And once people lose trust in surveillance technology, it becomes a lot harder to convince them that the cameras are only going to be used for the reasons they were promised to be used. If this statistic is true, we have a massive problem. But apparently the CEO of Flock, he ended up talking about the people who had a problem with Flock.
You've got organizations like the ACLU and the EFF who take an above-board approach to fight for their point of view. And thankfully, we live in a beautifully democratic, capitalistic country where we can fight in court. And I have a lot of respect for those groups because they have reasonable debates and we follow the law. And then unfortunately, there's terroristic organizations like DFLOC, whose primary motivation is chaos. They are closer to Antifa than they are anything else. And that, I think, is unfortunate, because we don't want chaos, or I don't want chaos. I like law and order. I like a society that has a bedrock of safety. So for those groups, I think it's just disappointing that they haven't chosen a more constructive mannerism to try to get what they want, which they have a right to have. But that's why we have a democratically elected process, right? Like we're not forcing Flock on anyone. Elected officials know that as a community, you want to be safe.
That's not very reassuring, and also, that's just flat out wrong. DFLOC is an open source project that simply maps out license plate readers. Like, if you're gonna litter our communities with license plate readers, we should at the bare minimum have the right to know where they are. We have another company called Axon, and that company is probably best known for its tasers and police body cameras that you see on the United States police officers. And they're also building connected camera networks through Fusus and Axim. So FLOC just happens to be the company that everyone knows. So that's important because even if FLOC disappears tomorrow, these cameras wouldn't. It seems like Axon and Motorola will happily fill the gap. Police departments could still buy similar systems from other companies. So essentially, the real question is, should FLOC exist? It's kind of like, how much surveillance are we comfortable with? Because, you know, China's been criticized for many years for this exact type of surveillance, but now it seems like we have it. And judging by the number of city council meetings, lawsuits, public record fights, and just viral videos, we're still trying to figure all this out. And the backlash has gotten big enough that some cities have actually started walking away from FLOC altogether. But from what I can tell, they aren't actually walking away from all of FLOC's competition yet. I think people are just vocal enough about FLOC to make them walk away from FLOC currently. For example, Los Angeles, they voted to actually end their contract, while other communities have paused or reconsidered the technology after public pressure. And as criticism has grown, FLOC CEO Garrett Langley has spent more time publicly defending the company and arguing that the technology is being misunderstood rather than abused. Well, I mean, we've already confirmed that it has been abused.
FLOC CEO Garrett Langley spoke to us about the LAPD cancellation and holds out hope the two will soon work together again.
We got to tighten up the policy, make sure everyone's aligned, and then turn it back on.
While FLOC is not working with LAPD right now, the company still has dozens of cameras throughout LA County and tens of thousands across the country.
So that's FLOC safety.
Video is coming to the way of Atozi. This new TikTok challenge is destroying AI FLOC camera. This is a very new world we're entering into with the use of AI camera systems and technology. And we're gonna be seeing way more of this as time goes on, as technology gets cheaper and people develop new systems to sell to the government, to provide information for law enforcement, the military, and all that. So this is just the beginning of this. So let me know what you think about this and what you're feeling, and what is your experience with FLOC safety and these FLOC cameras. Yeah, and if you want to join these live streams live, kick.com/kidgreatness, we'll be happy to have you.